my head held high. I'm walking around with my head held high. You know why? You know why? My dreams are reach, I can see those lights. My dreams are reach, I can see those lights. They on the other side. I'm walking around with my head held high. I'm walking around with my head held high. You know why? You know why? My dreams are reach, I can see those lights. My dreams are reach, I can see those lights. They on the other side.
Welcome to Would You Marry You, where we have candid conversations about what you are bringing to the table. Today, we're going to have a conversation about being single and thriving in your single season. Our guest today is Takisha Bromell. I am so excited to have you today.
I am too.
Wow.
I'm excited about it. I mean, there's a lot to talk about in this conversation that can be uncomfortable, but also exciting as you're waiting for that season of marriage and everything. So
it is so much to unpack.
Yes.
I don't know that we can do this in one session, so we just gonna do what we can do.
Yes.
So I remember meeting you the first, well, I don't even think it was the first time, but I remember coming to your book signing. That was several years ago.
Yes.
And I was so intrigued by the title of your book, A Lady in Waiting. Can you tell me what prompted that book?
You know, it wasn't me. I'm going to be perfectly honest. It was all about God. Like, I had no idea. I hadn't, you know how you say, I'm going to write a book. I probably thought that I was going to write something, but I am more of a business person. So I really thought it would be more on the business side of things. And then just one day, it was actually one Friday, I was at work and like little dribbles of this book started to come. And so I was just writing. And then it started to kind of like the faucet like broke, and then words started to come, and I honestly wrote chapter by chapter for a little over a weekend. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, going into Monday. It was not me because it was chapter by chapter. I remember saying like, "What are you doing?" or whatever. Starting to get exhausted in the middle of the process of writing the book, but I knew that it was beyond me, that I was in a creative zone that God was delivering. It had nothing to do with me at all.
Well, I think the title alone it spoke so loud to me, because we don't think about that preparation time, what it looks like in the process of preparing for marriage. So, are you married now?
I am not.
Okay. So what has your single season looked like?
A lot of frustration. You know, I divorced, and I was ready to get back in there all at once. And what the problem was that I was absolutely not ready, but I thought that I was ready. But it was me wanting to feel wanted, wanting to feel needed, wanting to have that person that when my feet are cold, I can actually rub my feet on that person's leg. Like all the things that I had experienced in being married, I wanted it then. I didn't want to go through the process of actually having to go to lunch by myself and do all the things by myself and all those kind of things. So I really, honestly, it wasn't good at first. And I know that we've had several moments where I'm like, well, where is he? And when is it going to happen or whatever? And even in those moments, like I felt like I was fighting God on it. Now, when I wrote my book, it was the second to the last chapter of my book. I was writing and writing and writing Friday, Saturday, and then Saturday night, Sunday morning, I was like, I need to take a nap. And I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I need to take a nap. But I knew I was under the flow, and I didn't want to break the flow. So I remember praying to God, like, Lord, I'm going to go and take me a little nap. And I just need you to not stop the flow.
Right.
Because I didn't know if I would be able to get back into the flow of it. I knew that it wasn't me, right? So I was like, okay, Lord, I'm going to go to sleep. So I took a nap. Then I woke up and I was like, okay, Lord, just give me one more minute. What I want to do is go to church today. I want to go to church. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to go to church. And I was like, but as I was going, the flow had not stopped, and I was recording it. And I actually had insight to bring my laptop with me to church. So I get to church, I sit down, and I'm like praising the Lord, and I'm like, hearing from God, and it's just so amazing. as I'm leaving church, it starts again, and I'm recording. So I finally just said, let me just stop at a Starbucks and let me sit down and let me finish the book, because I was very close. I had written about 7 or 8 chapters. I felt like I was getting close to it. He was starting to introduce Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to me in that. And so I stopped. I stopped at Starbucks, and I'm like, what? I started to write again. And as I'm writing, there's this part when they know that God can do it, but they also know that God doesn't have to. And
they're okay
either way.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting in Starbucks, and I realized that God was waiting on me.
Wow.
To let it go, to let what my desires are for the future, and let it go, and say, Lord, your perfect will be done. And I also knew that I couldn't say that and just say it in a book. Like, I needed to actually believe it. So I was in Starbucks crying and bawling. The people at Starbucks, that Starbucks over there, they were looking at, I'm sure they were looking at me like, what is wrong with this lady? But I was in there crying, Taffiney, and having because I knew what God wanted.
Yeah.
He had to be enough.
Yes.
If I never got married again, and I actually said that in the book, if I never got married again, it was going to be okay, right? And so I'm sitting there crying and bawling my eyes out, knowing what God was desiring from me, and wondering if I had the wherewithal to give that thing to him. And I finally got to peace that if God would never bring another man in my life, that I was going to be okay.
Yeah.
That took a moment of being honest and letting go. But okay. So I said that I went until Monday, because then on Monday he gave me another chapter, and it was called Due Season. Like, the last chapter of the book is called Due Season.
See, when I read it, I was wondering if that chapter was before, because the chapter right before that seemed like it was coming to a, you know what I'm saying? Like, it really did. Because when I got to that point, I was like, oh, what's next? Because I thought, oh, this is.
It should have been, that was the last chapter.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was reading it. And then I read the next one, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah. In Due Season. And I wasn't expecting that. I had to get to Your All, Lord, to see what, God has all kinds of surprises and all kinds of things for us. And the very time that we turn off something and say, your will be done, is the very time that he comes up with all these things, and he lays it at your feet. And so that Due Season was like, okay, Lord, I don't know when and where, but he gave me this other part of it that can only be written, the next part of this book can only be written when he comes, when he comes.
Isn't that beautiful? I mean, it's like, when I think about Would You Marry You, and I think about all of the things that the Lord took me through before he even opened the door for me to be even able to be found, because that's we know that we're to be found.
Yes.
Which means that they have to be searching, right?
Yes. So, and we have to be seen.
Exactly.
Okay, because me and you are introverts, so honey, we will be unseen in the house. I'm like, get yourself out of the house, go to the coffee shop, do something. Yes.
Exactly, because I was like, oh, he's gonna show up at the door.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the UPS guy or something. But now they drop your package off and take a picture and leave.
And they leave, honey. They don't even wait
for you to answer the door. So, somewhere out there. But I remember that space of God saying, if I've created this man for you, but your brokenness can stall what I've done in him. So would you even marry you? You have these daddy issues. You've got this unforgiveness going on. You're walking around with a mask, like everything is okay, but you're broken on the inside. I need you to there again, I am enough. God is enough. If it comes, great. If it doesn't, it's okay. God is enough.
Yes.
And then going through that process, which was simple because I made the choice to say, yes, I'll do it. But it wasn't always easy.
No.
I mean, I ran smack face first into brick walls
Yes.
of things that I hadn't dealt with, because I started asking the question, like, I've been through a couple of marriages at this point, and I'm like, what is it about me that is attracting this type of man? And what is it about me that's attracted to this type of man?
Yeah.
Like, something is drawing this. So I had to go through that process, and as I was going down through the process and really looking at it, I found that the person that modeled husband to me was my great grandfather, because that was the only husband I saw. And my great grandfather was a provider. He was, very good around the house. He was very, good with his hands, very good with a lot of things. But he had a whole nother family on the other side of town.
Mine did too. Oh,
Girl.
What do we? My grandfather had like maybe 8 children from my grandmother, but he had a whole family, a whole nother family, and probably 8 other kids on the other side of on the other side too. It was so, like, I look at it now and I think about it and I'm like, this was so ridiculous. Like, I remember how my grandmother, she didn't say much about it. It was my mother and the kids that were like all in an uproar. You know what I'm saying? As we were finding out this, because her kids and the other lady's kids were kind of like the same age groups and everything. And the other kids would come and would try to wreak havoc on my family.
Oh, wow.
But my grandmother was the wife. Right?
And that is exactly what my situation was.
Yeah.
My grandmother was very classy. She was not going to bow to or become what he was. She was, she just held it all together.
Held it all together.
Held it all together. And you would never tell, you could never tell, based on how she operated as wife, that there was anything going on.
There was anything going on. It wasn't until they got of age, my mother and her sisters and brothers, that they even knew anything was going on. I'm sure my grandmother knew, but no one else knew, and it was from the other kids that felt slighted.
Yeah.
And that they started to kind of like share that and throw that stuff in our face, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. It was really crazy back then, yeah.
It was. I mean, it was a different time, in a different era. But I saw myself listen.
Yes.
It was a different era.
It was a different era. The fact that we're sitting here and realizing this, we just had dinner last night, and then to be talking about this and sharing that our grandparents were kind of like, they had their own thing going on. I mean, I'm pretty sure, I think about my granddad and I'm like, what were you thinking? But back in those days, there are probably more conversations about people who dealt with that than we would expect.
Well, and nobody talked about it, because what
Mm-hmm.
goes on in the house stays in the house.
Yeah,
I
it
mean, we
does.
know that. Yeah, that was an unspoken rule. Nobody had to say it. It was unspoken.
It was,
And we
yeah.
knew. But I found myself like really looking at, one of the things that the Lord took me through is to look at who modeled certain roles in front of me. And by my grandmother modeling that role when my ex-husbands cheated, when they were, it was like, oh, well, I still have to hold it all together. Because that's what grandma modeled to me.
So, you know what, as we're talking, like, I'm starting to get like revelation of something. Like my mom and my grandmother, they were real matriarchs, you know what I'm saying? So very strong women.
100%.
Okay, and so I'm like looking and thinking about like my grandfather, who was probably not as strong, like he wasn't a leader. You know what I'm saying? My mother and grandma and my aunts and everything, there were all these leaders in relationships and everything. And so it just made me think about Ahab and Jezebel. Okay, so
Just saying.
like, yeah, and like Jezebel was like this strong woman, and I find that I'm this strong woman, and sometimes we attract like the total opposite of that, which is someone who's a man that is not that man that's going to be like strong and or whatever. And that was probably one of the issues that I've had since I've been divorced, is that I'm actually like attracting that man who's not emotionally available, who doesn't have the heart to lead and be a leader for God, right? And now that's my story, okay? And who's always like maybe looking for more, because they actually want someone that's more subservient. And they don't think that that can come through a woman who's strong.
You know what's interesting, as I look back over my past marriages, I noticed that all of my husbands had mommy issues. You know, and so when I think about that, I'm thinking, you know, and I say that in the most loving way. Yeah, just put that out there. But it was, you know, things that either they felt like they didn't have the opportunity to have a voice when it came to their mothers, because their mothers were overbearing, or they saw their moms do things that they vowed that their wives would never put up with that from a woman, or if they felt themselves getting too close to the woman, they would seriously sabotage the relationship by going and having affairs, making sure that they didn't get too attached. Like there was literally sabotage behavior in that. And so I had to stop and think, how was, you know, there again, my story. Did I do anything? Was I a part of something that would perpetuate their thought process that they had to steer away from becoming attached?
Now, my first marriage, yes. So I attracted someone who wasn't a strong man, if that makes sense. Like he just like he would allow me to lead things and everything. And then I'm also a businesswoman who's leading. So for me, like that attraction to someone, like most guys, they can be somewhat intimidated by me, or they just don't want to bother, you know. And so I've had to really think through myself and like what my desire is, and like, now these days they talk about feminine energy and masculine energy and all of that. But I do think that there's something to be said
100% it is.
about presenting yourself as a woman.
Yeah.
And you don't have to dummy down yourself to be a woman that also leads in certain areas, but is absolutely desiring someone to lead.
Yes.
Like, gosh, you don't. That's the last thing you have. That's the last thing you have to worry about for me.
Right.
I want you to lead because because I am feminine.
Yes.
Okay. And just because I lead a corporation or lead a business doesn't mean that for some reason that means that I'm masculine.
Correct.
It just means that I am a leader that God has chosen. But honey, trust me, I want a man that absolutely can lead me.
100%.
Yes.
It is the safest place to be.
Yes.
I love the word submit. I do.
Yes, I do too.
It's a difference between submitting and being bullied, though. In my first marriage, it was an abusive situation. And it was, I think, a lot because I was very strong and being strong-minded, strong-willed. I was a strong-willed kid. Being strong-willed and being a leader, just a natural-born leader, you know, I submitted to his authority in things that he led in, and it was only right. The word says to submit one to another.
Yes.
So if it were a time where I was leading, then be there to support me in that, and vice versa, which is what I'm always and have always looked for. My second husband, he has passed away, but it was a really good situation there because at the time I was director of revenue auditing for casinos, for several casinos in Oklahoma, and literally there was a certain spot as I was driving home that I would I had a sticky note on my sun visor that said change hats. Because
this is so good. This is so good.
I realized that I was taking that, do this, do that, home.
So good.
And I had to change hats and realize that now I'm going into a space where he is the
That
leader.
is such great feedback. I mean, to all the ladies out here, I'm telling you, and as I get ready for who's coming to come, is to have that thought process and to live in that process and to actually, create that process and the idea that, you know what, it's okay to recognize that where you are in business or whatever you're doing, that you can be different and you can be in different spaces in different places, and it's okay.
100%.
Yeah.
And it was learned behavior because of a situation that we went through, and I ended up going to marriage counseling by myself.
I did that too.
Listen,
Oh my God. Me and you, I told you we were twinning last night, didn't I? Yes, we're twinning for sure.
I was like, listen, if he won't go, fine.
Yes.
I need to go. I need to go.
Yeah.
And I remember her saying there were 3 things that were most important to a man. 1, that he could satisfy his wife sexually. 2, that he could support his family financially. And 3, that he was the ultimate decision maker in the home. And when you strip a man of any of those, then they look for that in other places. And I'm not saying it was my fault, but I can tell you this. My ex-husband had a major back injury, so he was off work for a season. So I went and took a second job. I went and got my real estate license. So I'm auditing in the daytime, selling real estate in the afternoons and weekends. Like, I'm working a lot. The kids are coming to me for decision making and all of the stuff because, he was in a lot of pain and had some major setbacks from his surgery. So I had stepped up financially. I had stepped up as far as all of those things. And when he got back to work, instead of me getting back in my position, I stayed in that position.
Yeah.
And with that, I feel that it made him feel less needed. And maybe that was the reason for some of his decisions.
Yeah.
So just making sure that we are, really gravitating to our feminine side and identifying when we are maybe out of alignment with what God says about the structure of what the family is supposed to look like. I never saw a healthy marriage coming up, but I did a lot of reading.
Yeah.
And so in my reading, I found these things, but it wasn't until much, much later that I realized my part. So when I talk about would you marry you, what are you bringing to the table? Have you completely healed, maybe not completely whole yet, but healed from the childhood trauma, the past relationships, soul ties, unforgiveness, daddy issues, all of the stuff, and truly be single and not just not married? Because it's a difference. Because if you're coming in with baggage, you're not single really to give yourself to nobody. So,
for me, I've always felt like that I was ready. And probably until I was coming up here and you had asked me about actually coming and doing this. And I was like, wow, I am so like back in the day when I was like fighting God on this, okay? Because even though I wrote what I wrote in my book, it's a everyday give it back to God occurrence, right? Yeah. In different times of the month, different things that are happening, you're starting to kind of feel certain ways or whatever. And those things are legitimate things to not just pass away on. It is what it is. But, am I really there? And so it was funny as I was thinking about it, I was like, wow, I'm such in a different place because I remember talking to you and I was so bitter, you guys. I just need to look at the camera. I was absolutely bitter. I was coming to you with my bitterness. And you were trying hard, okay? Whatever I gave you there. To kind of tell me Takisha, calm yourself down, relax yourself, it's gonna be okay or whatever. But when I thought about it, after the message that you sent me about coming on, I was like, I'm in such a different place. Before I thought that there was this carrot that God was leading, waving in front of me. And every time I would get a little bit too close to it, he would yank it yank it back or whatever. And I was just so not happy with God about it. And like now, it's like I don't even. I like the resentment that I had to God is not there. Yeah. I'm not resentful. I desire to be married, but it is not like it's not so on me as it was before. It was so on me that it just had to be the way that I wanted it to be. So I feel like I'm in a really good place is what I'll say. You know what? The proving ground that we all have to go through is when you can go to sleep, you can go and do the things that you do on a day-to-day basis, and you may, and even in those moments, you may have a moment of like, correct, wow, I'm ready. I think that I'm ready. But the proving ground is that I'm not upset with God about it. I'm not struggling through it. I'm not doing any of those things. I'm okay. Like, I'm gonna be okay. That second to last chapter.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Is I'm going to be okay. On the other side of it is, he said, in due season. And so there's this promise that he's given me that I didn't even expect because I had to let go first, and I still have to let go on a day-to-day basis. The proving ground is that I believe God, and that if he gave me that chapter, that he's going to do something with it.
That is so powerful. He's such a loving daddy.
He's a loving daddy.
I mean, because he protects us from even getting into those spaces.
If we would let him.
Oh my gosh. I remember somebody telling me, don't make permanent decisions based on a temporary emotion. You know, at that time you may be lonely. At that time you may want to have something going on. But just know beyond a shadow of a doubt that he has what's best in store for you. And he is just sitting there waiting like, okay, my girl gonna get it together in a minute. She gonna let me have my way. You know, we could go on forever. Yes. I mean, for real. We could go on with this for hours and hours, and we will definitely have to have a part 2 to this and come back and have another conversation. I hope that something was said today that would bring you closer to understanding and answering the question, would you marry you? But as I say all the time, don't just be a hearer of the word, be a doer of the word. And take the time that's necessary to get hot, to get honest, to get open, and to get transparent so that you can heal and be that good thing that he finds. I'm Taffiney, and until next time, would you marry you?
Walking around with my head held high. I'm walking around with my head held high. You know why? My dreams are reach. I can see those lights. My dreams are reach. I can see those lights. They on the other side. I'm walking around with my head held high. I'm walking around with my head held high. You know why? My dreams are reach. I can see those lights. My dreams are reach. I can see those lights. They on the other side.